Wheeling Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, October 16th, 2014 is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Dorband is absent with prior notice. Commissioner Johnson, I am here. Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Stylen.
Here.
Commissioner Vito.
Here.
Commissioner Zangara.
Here.
And Chairman Raffato.
Here. Mr. Jennings, any change to the agenda?
We do have one change. The minutes were not distributed and therefore cannot be voted on. We'll move that to next week's meeting.
Thank you. Number 5, citizen concerns and comments. At this time, if there is a citizen wishing to talk to a concern or comments, make a comment on anything other than the items for review, please come forward. Okay, great. Consent items, docket number SCBA 14-30, Wingstop, 280 East Dundee Road, appearance approval of a wall sign.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to add a condition on there that any holes in the facade, or if the facade needs to be repainted or repaired, that it's done as part of the sign improvement.
Mr. Jennings, is that part of the
Normal standards?
normal standards?
It is. If there are holes out there right now, though, from the FedEx sign, it can certainly be a reminder to us to just double check that.
Okay, great.
It doesn't hurt anything to add it.
No, one other question on that. The drawing indicates that it's going to be green. It looks really black on our drawing. Is it really, really dark green?
The W, well, the lettering,
Yeah, the lettering.
I believe is a very dark green, yes.
Okay. Just want to confirm that.
To our motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stylen, second by Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Stylen?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson is a yes. Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara?
Yes.
And Chairman Raffato.
Yes.
And that, just to confirm, is with the condition that the facade is repaired prior to installation.
Yes.
I have made by Commissioner Stylen, seconded by Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Okay. I hadn't typed the condition. Okay,
You done?
I am.
Thank you. Items for review. Docket number PC 1415, Spears Bourbon Burgers and Beer, 723 North Milwaukee Avenue, site plan amendment for a restaurant. Mr. Jennings?
Thank you. The petitioner, Spears Bourbon Burgers and Beer, is an existing restaurant in Prairie Crossing Shopping Center, which is the shopping center directly in front of the Westin Hotel. Petitioner was last in front of you for signage. Prior to that, was here for their special use approval. The special use at the time of the review included a floor plan that showed 116 indoor seats. During the construction and build out, the petitioner, seeing the physical layout of the space and with some changes to the area around the bar, added some additional tables, is here in front of you tonight to seek approval of the floor plan as it exists today. The parking requirement for this particular shopping center is based on the square footage. Therefore, the additional tables do not have a impact on the calculation of the available parking that was then used for Dunkin' Donuts and Subway, which came after this particular restaurant. So with that, the petitioner is here and available to answer questions.
Mr. Romeo, if you can come up. Do you have anything to add to what Mr. Jennings said?
No, except we added on square footage during construction, and everybody was pretty much aware of it. And then
I mean, space is open. I mean, we can even add more than 40 more seats into the space. I mean, we have 6 feet of spacing in between tables right now. So I guess I don't have much more to say.
Great, thank you. I'll go to the commission. Commissioner Powers.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm just wondering how we went from 116 to 82, and as part of part of the certificate of occupancy, do we, like maybe this is for staff, do we check to see if the seating meets what was approved, and should we have noticed an increase in seating?
In this case, I believe the final inspection, and you can correct me, Mr. Romeo, if I get this wrong, but in this case, the final inspection for the placement of the occupancy limit sign by the fire department is what originally caused us to go back and take a look at all of this. The layout itself, we generally look at the layout as part of the final CO. The fire department does a final check. And I believe in this case, the CO was issued based on a building code occupancy level, which this space, as it's currently laid out, did satisfy the requirements of the code. So in creating the sign, the fire department double-checked with us, which is when we found the discrepancy in the numbers.
Okay. Because, geez, I don't understand how that could go in, and we approved one thing, and we've got like a 50% increase in seating, and I know parking has always been is becoming an issue there, and I think we know about it. I think it would feel better about this if we had some kind of plan on how to deal with the parking, because there's going to be additional businesses come in there, and it's only going to make it worse. So right now I'm kind of on the fence about that, but I'm just not really happy to see that much more seating went in, and now we're getting this kind of, for me, it's kind of like after the fact. Although it was open and it was approved, what was implemented, it wasn't what we approved. And I think that's what I have to say right now.
We do have valet that helps with the parking, and our valet does to take the cars away from everybody else. And actually, we accommodate all the businesses around us. If we block any other spaces, they will move cones or do whatever they can to accommodate the other businesses around us. So we help Massage Envy, we help, Subway, we'll help anybody. We've always been good neighbors to everyone around us. So, and, so far I think we've been doing pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have nothing further.
Commissioner Zangara.
Thank you. There isn't much. I just wanted to agree that as long as it met code with the fire, and when I remember when it first came to me, I suggested I think something like this, because I said, well, I walk in and have the bathrooms right there. I think the bathrooms were in that spot the first time, and I was very concerned about walking into a place and hey, there's a bathroom. So as long as I think it's met all the codes and the fire department and whatnot, like we've talked about the parking issue, something's totally separate, but I see nothing wrong with what's here, and I hope you fill it all up.
Thanks.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you.
We're full right now, so I gotta get back. No.
Commissioner Vito.
I recuse myself on this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. My concerns are more with the parking. If the fire department's happy with the additional seating, I have no problem with that. The parking is going to be an issue, I think, for the next person that comes to us. That's all.
Commissioner Stylin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am thankful that you changed the site plan and moved the bathroom away from the front door over to the side. It's much better.
I still want a canopy over the patio though, but that's another day.
And I like the fire pit. I think that's real classy. But I do have some concerns like the other commissioners with the parking at that site in general, and I'm frustrated about it. And I know that you're trying to do what you can to alleviate as much of the problem as there is and can be. And I'd like to offer I think 3 or 4 conditions here for the commission to consider, and I'd like to offer it for this petitioner, but I think it could be extended to the other members of the site as well. And the one thing that I would like to avoid in the future is any signs that might say, you know, reserved parking for Spears, whatever, and have other, you know, patrons for other stores be required to go somewhere else.
We do have, I hate to interrupt you, sorry. We do have several signs. They're sitting in the back, and we have several spaces that are for Spears on the property itself, but I just have not put up the signs yet. I have the signs made, but I don't put
Okay, I mean, because the one benefit of the parking that we proposed for that center in general was that all parking would be shared. And, you know, the belief was that, like, Dunkin' Donuts would have a Monday morning, or excuse me, a morning operation. Subway would probably have a midday operation, and Spears would have a nighttime operation, and other restaurants as well. And the overlap of all those parking would somehow balance out as long as there weren't any reserved parking spots. But now as you start, if people start reserving spots, that means that there's less space available for those other tenants to be able to use that, I'll call it shared pot of parking spaces. So that's my reason for saying that there should be no shared designated parking, and that goes along with you know, the cones that your valets may put out blocking certain parking spaces so that they're available to them and not available for shared use by the other tenants of the center. You know, I think it just ought to be first come, first served, who gets that. And I'd like to believe that your valet service, if they have to, and probably be nice if they went to the corners of the site, where there probably are open spaces, so that patrons that don't want to use the valet service use it locally. And I'd also like, that was my first condition.
Spears originally didn't have signs, but everybody started making these signs because we didn't need it because we had valet. But now we're getting, everybody's busy and everybody was arguing, and they're looking at us as we're taking up spots. But, you know, we're fortunate that the hotel is sold out and has been doing great. But, you know, I'm not the police, and I can't go out there and say you can't park there, and I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
you know?
and unfortunately, you're the guy that's in front of us today, and I'd like to say it should apply to the whole PUD property, but...
And it hurts me more than anybody that there's no parking. I mean, if there's no parking, people don't want to come in and have a beer, they'll just go right past me, so...
Exactly.
You know, I definitely, you know...
And I'd like to, as a second condition, and I think, Jim, we normally do, but I don't recall it for this site, that we have employee parking areas designated on the site plan for where employees...
In this particular case, and just to for the petitioner's benefit and for the commission, the petition in front of you right now is somewhat separate from the PUD. There is an overlap, obviously, it's within the PUD. One of the things that we discovered looking at this PUD is the way the parking restrictions are handled in it require, it's shared, as you mentioned, it's shared parking, but the employees are required to park on the lot of the business that they're employed by. I think the village would like to work on a few different things at this center, big picture outside of this particular petition. Valet management is one of the things that we'd like to work with all of the owners on. identifying an area for valet, make it remote, and working with all the, I think there's 4 different valet services,
There's one valet service that runs all 4 places.
but there's 4 kiosks.
We share, yeah,
So the 4 kiosks
Yes.
they're managed by the same company.
yep.
So that should make it easier, but working with the valet management of the site to sort of regulate the valet, where's the designated spot? As it is right now, the covenant on the property restricts us from requiring employee parking to be off of the lot. So we would need to work with the various owners to designate employee parking as we would with the valet. So there's a couple of things we'd like to work with. We'd like to talk to the hotel about finding an overflow off-site parking location, shuttle for the employees, that sort of thing. So there are a handful of things we'd like to do. This particular petitioner does have some ability to talk to his particular valet if their kiosk directly in front of Spears is not operating as expected. He does have some ability to work with them on that, but he does not have the authority to make decisions for the entire set of property owners.
No, but he must for his particular business and his particular employees, right?
But I'd echo what Andrew said, is that the parking issue is subject to the entire PUD and restrictions, and the PUD isn't before you guys tonight, so any conditions that would be related to how they manage parking, because this doesn't affect parking, per the requirements of the PUD, I don't think that they'd be appropriate to add to this specific request. It'd have to be when the PUD is before the commission.
Okay.
But to say one more thing, though, we don't allow our employees to park right in front of our stores. We make them park way in the back, and they get escorted out at nighttime. So just to answer that.
Okay. And along with that second point, right, we normally get, in addition to seating counts for seats in a restaurant, we normally get employee counts as well. And I'd just like to have that information documented in our records somewhere as to what the current seating and current employee count is. One thing that, again, I will ask, and it has to do with parking, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask it.
Well, it's fine. I mean, it's fine that you ask it and to address this certain one. I just don't think it'd be appropriate to put it as a condition on approval, that's all.
Okay. Well, again, I'd offer it as a condition that an off-site valet parking plan should be created if you ever have any special type events that might cause an unusual number of people to attend, like your grand opening, right? The place was packed and you knew you were going to get a lot of patrons. But if you ever have any special events, it might be nice to come up with a plan to, because you know you're going to have, probably know you're going to have a problem, you know, and if the other patrons of the center do the same, then you might be able to avoid, you know, a potential conflict.
Sure.
And then the other thing that I would like to add, again, as a condition, is that the Community Development Department created a nice parking analysis report that I received. I think the rest of you may have received it as well. And that report should continue to be developed with consideration of an on-site parking garage, and that the report should be shared with the Plan Commission and the Village Board prior to any new special use coming into that center. And that's it. I hope I didn't take too much of your time, but thank you. We come and visit you occasionally, so keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just be clear, Andrew, irrespective of the number of seats that are in here, our calculation for the number of stalls would not have changed. And it says that in...
Yes, that's correct. The change occurred Actually, the change in the square footage occurred during the original special use. So prior to your last review of the special use, the plan that the Plan Commission made the recommendation on, the one that has been referred to, having the restrooms near the door, that plan was based on this square footage. The original application was based on a square footage that was slightly smaller. I want to say 4,300.
It was approximately
About
that, yeah,
1,100
something like
less.
that.
So the plan that you reviewed, this unit is shaped the same way. It does have more seating in it as described in the staff report, but it is shaped the same way and therefore has the same parking requirement
Right.
under the rules of this particular PUD.
Okay, thank you. And then, and I'm going to rely on staff and our attorney as far as the conditions that Commissioner Stylen asked for. It seems to me that it's something that we need to take into consideration for future plans. I know there's apparently a building going in, which could impact, well, which will impact, well, there's an open piece of property there that will impact probably most likely the parking. And I think Mallory indicated that the conditions that Commissioner Stylen had suggested are more generic they're more towards the PUD, not specifically to this docket.
Correct.
Is that correct? So they should not be added to,
Right, they go to the functioning of the parking requirement under the PUD requirements and not to Spear's specific floor plan, especially because this floor plan does not increase their parking requirements.
but to what Commissioner Stein was saying, those need to be taken into consideration as you are discussing with the overall development, the valet parking, which we all know is a problem, their tendency to take over spaces that they shouldn't.
And this is a special use, and don't we have certain capabilities under special use
It would-
It's not a special use.
This isn't a special use before
It's a
you,
site
this is
plan.
just a site plan amendment.
It's not a special use.
And again, in this case, you would be putting a burden, this is something that should be looked at with all of the restaurants and businesses within the PUD, and to impose it on a single tenant just because they happen to be before you for a site plan review would be problematic as well. So it's something that we should, staff can look into and consider and talk to all of the businesses about, hopefully coming up with a plan to address the parking concerns.
Mallory, I hate to bring up a point of order, but the project description in our docket today clearly states the petitioner is requesting an amendment to the existing special use ordinance in order to modify the floor plan of an existing sit-down restaurant. So if we're modifying the special use, can't we discuss other items associated with the special use?
In this particular case, the aspect that they're requesting to amend is the floor plan itself. The floor plan in this case is the same impact on the parking due to the way the parking is calculated at the shopping center. So I think that there are, you can certainly disagree with this, but I think that there are some elements of managing the parking that this particular petitioner does have some influence on. The parking, the valet kiosk that's directly in front of this business, while it may be commonly contracted, you may have more influence over that particular kiosk in the way that they're running their operation than you may over the one that's directly in front of the hotel, for example. So if you do find that that particular kiosk is reserving spaces that they shouldn't be, you probably have, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably have more of a relationship with that kiosk than you do with the one in front of Cooper's Hawk.
Sure.
So I think what we've discovered through researching all of this is that there are some things that we can do and we're going to try to work with the various owners on. This particular petitioner is not a property owner here. There are, I think, 5 property owners. We do need to get them to a table and talk about long-term solutions here, but there's a limit to what this particular petitioner is responsible for.
I hear you, but I heard the petitioner say that he has some reserved parking signs sitting in his back room that he's ready to put up. And is that part of our special use that allows that kind of operation to go on?
If it's going to save me 40 seats, I won't put the signs up. I don't need them. I mean, I'm getting punished for landowners, forget it.
I'm not worried about your seats.
I know, but I'm getting punished over everybody else. And because if it was a Quiznos, Subway, and 20 other stores there, all in that one building, it's the same parking. I mean, so why would I get punished for, if my store was divided into 4 different stores, if it was all different restaurants and chains or whatever else, I mean, it's still the same amount of parking that's going to be used. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, but I'm getting punished for everybody else, and I think the landowners should be here. But if I lose 40 seats, that would definitely kill us and my workers.
I don't think you have to worry about your seats, so they're safe.
All right, that's all I care about.
Just while you're standing there, the valet, just to be clear about it, the valet service is a single service for all the
No,
contract?
we pay separately, but it's all the same company. You know, it's easier to keep the same company on the property than it is to go, I can bring in another company, or Cooper's can bring in another company, or the hotel. So we all use the same company because they know how the lot works, how it runs. So if they got to take cars or they need extra guys to go somewhere else, it's easier for them to accommodate the
So
guests.
somebody on site manages how many runners they have designated for each kiosk?
I couldn't tell you that.
So that's where we need to start, apparently, because if it's, we need to find out the infrastructure of this parking company and how they're working, and get with the restaurant owners, the restaurants or hotel who use this, and start working on this, because it's just, it's impacting the restaurants, all the restaurants. And if Mr. Romeo hadn't come in here, we'd still have the problem. And I agree, should be nothing attached to the site plan amendment, this docket, because of the workings or the sins of the other restaurants. We can ask Mr. Romeo to take care of his specific kiosk, to keep it out of the way and not do, even that though is not germane to this. It's just, it's parking, and it would be no different, if he had 100 seats in there or 166 seats. So what I'd like to see, and I think the Planning Commission would like to see from the village, is a plan. We've been dinking around with this thing. Every time another retailer comes in here, we've been talking around it, and nothing has happened. So now I would like to see some action. I'd like to see a plan. What are we going to do in the next couple of months?
Can we put it off to the next retailer?
No, well, it doesn't impact you.
Okay.
It doesn't impact you. I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
Not talking about that. I'm talking about in general, trying to keep it separate from what you're talking about, what's happening in the PUD.
Okay.
And, I don't want to wait until the next building comes in to discuss parking. There are some interim plans that can be done to alleviate some of this stuff. You said it in the email that you sent all of us. The parking in the northeast corner is empty. I'm sorry, yeah, the northeast corner is,
Behind Twin Peaks, correct.
yeah, is empty. why aren't the parking valet using that? I'm sorry, but, you know, they should be using that as a place to park. The employees should be, as Spears has done, they park out there. Why don't we have that? Why don't we have some of that talking to them?
Sure.
So we need, I would like to see some idea of what the village is going to do about that. So, you know, because it's nothing really that Mr. Romeo did with Spears. You know, he just happened to be here. He just happened to be
A
here.
long day.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's your turn.
I'm sure, so.
Listen, like I said, it hurts us more than it hurts you guys, so, I mean, there's no one wants to get out of the car and walk a mile to go get a burger, I'm telling you. So, I mean, we have to accommodate guests, and by doing it, there's valet and parking, so that's all we can do.
Is the valet service a free service that operates on tip and then a contract with the property owners, or is it
I would love to say yes to that, but we pay them.
So the
We don't.
businesses pay them?
The businesses pay 'em, yes.
The users are tipping only, they don't have a
Yes.
set fee? Okay.
Yes.
I'm supposed to tip? I didn't know that. Darn it.
In the restaurant too, Jim.
So, I think, Andrew, you have some direction from us as where we'd like to go on this. So, do I hear a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, but does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Mr. Jennings?
No, I just wanted to, I was going down the list of commissioners, and we had everybody.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
There a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Stylin, second by Commissioner Zangara. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Stylin,
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson is a yes, Commissioner Powers,
No.
Commissioner Vito,
Abstain.
and Chairman Rafato.
Yes.
So we have 4 yes, 1 no, an abstention, and an absent.
You're good to go.
Thank you.
You'll have something to sign. Thank you. We understand your dilemma and your pain, and we hope to get something going, at least some interim things that could help.
I'm sure we can all get together and figure it out, though. I mean, all the GM to the hotel, to the restaurant managers, I'm sure everybody will work.
We should have invited them to the Taste of the Town last week and just sat around and talked about it. They were all there.
They were all there.
And so were all our cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, so are all of our cars.
Mr. Romeo, I'll find out if the actual mechanism of taking the plan and making the swap in the ordinance might qualify as a consent agenda item with the board. It might not. I'll have to double check. You may have to be present for that vote. It would be a Monday night. I'll let you know.
All right, thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Calling docket number PC 14-01, Hakimi Shopping Center, 82 through 106 East Dundee Road, minor site plan and appearance approval of facade modifications. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. The petitioner is proposing facade modifications. You can come on up. Like the petitioner is proposing facade modifications for the existing shopping center. There's also, in addition to the facade work itself, there is some lighting proposed. There is a proposal for planter boxes in front of the storefronts. With that, I'd like to just hand it over to the petitioner to describe what's being requested.
Great. Could you give your name and business address? Just speak into the microphone.
Yes, my name is John Lehman. I'm a project manager, and I am located at 8 South 315 Adams Street.
Could you spell your last name?
Lahman.
Great, thank you. Sir?
I'm the owner of the shopping center. My name is Fred Hakimi.
Okay, great, thank you. So if you would like to, the floor is yours, if you can explain what you propose to do.
Yes. As of right now, we are trying to remove 6 sections of the front of the shopping center, and then we're trying to create an appearance of a column from the bottom to the top of the building, and then we're going to extend that about 12 inches above the limestone capping. The brick that we're planning to use right here in the front of you, and then also we're trying to remove some of the bricks, the existing bricks surrounding door number B and C that's per plan, so we'll match the rest of the bricks on the front facade. And then we're trying to refinish the existing stucco at the upper part of the building. And then we're going to extend the stucco on the ceiling in front of each entry of the of the store.
Can I just, while we have the photograph up, I actually have your plan view of this as well, but while we have the photograph up, could you just clarify which brick? We're looking from west to east, so Napa on the west end and the east side with the window fashions. The portion of the brick that you're intending to keep is which one?
So we're going to keep the brick on the Napa. Well, on the blueprint we marked each door with A, B, C through E or so. So what we were planning to do is removing the brick that's not a matching brick with the rest of the building, and it's the brick surrounding. It's the second door from east to west. Second and third door. Yes, correct. Yes, that's right. Yes, correct. Yep. Yes. So we're going to replace that brick with the new brick provided. And then we also have some limestone. There are a couple, 2-3 walls that are limestone. They will stay as is because we also have limestone under the windows.
So that's
front store windows.
These dividers here?
Dividers, correct.
This will stay?
They will stay.
Okay.
And then, yeah, so, you know, we're trying to keep the whole front facade more consistent. That's why we were trying to remove the existing brick surrounding door number 2 and 3.
So that's these ones? Okay.
Correct.
All right, and I do have the plan view. I just thought while we had the color photograph up that would be helpful. So continue, please.
Yes. And then, as you can see, we're trying to extend the pilasters up, all the way up over the stucco. And then there will be limestone capping on top of the column. And then what we're trying to do, we're trying to provide and install 5 wall sconces that they will be set 7-8 feet above the finished floor, the existing concrete sidewalk. And then there would be a parking lot lighting, since the front parking lot is pretty dark. So we're trying to make the whole parking lot more lit. And then also, since we don't have any room on the property to put any landscaping, the only options that we could come up with, it was just putting some planter boxes in front of each window. And then this could be, you know, as of right now, we were trying to make them out of a, cedar box with some perennials, and then whether they're going to be attached to the front store, the existing limestone, or the existing wall, so they won't get, moved around and stuff, or we can just have some kind of a, support and stuff.
Okay.
So, and then all the existing brick that stays, it will get tuck pointed, and then power washed and acid washed to revive the original color. I believe, that's, yeah, and then the signs will go back up as, each tenant would like to keep their signs. That's something that, we can't really
Right.
do anything, but, so, yes, I think that's about it.
Great. Thank you. We'll start with Commissioner Zangara.
Thank you. First question I would have with these columns you're putting in. Are you going to cut the ephes? Because I know that ephes in the, so you can cut it and
Yes.
fill it in, so.
We're gonna try, we're gonna cut the 24 inches into the existing brick, and then, we're gonna cut that all the way up. We're gonna provide a steel lintel at the bottom that will sit on the existing foundation, and then we're gonna put the new brick that's gonna be, it's gonna stick out about 4 inches, that will look in appearance of a column.
Okay.
And then we're tooting the new brick with old brick, so create more structure.
And then I think I read something that, are you retuck pointing everything?
Correct, the whole front of the building, correct, the front
Oh,
facade.
okay. Otherwise, I mean, I really like it. It looks much improved. With the planter boxes, I know they talked about being seasonal or being there all the time. Was there any thought of maybe even, I don't know if you could or not, cutting the concrete there and having like an in-bed?
Yes, I can talk to the architect, maybe to have a different idea.
Just a suggestion, just so, because I know boxes, like you talked about cedar, could get hit and beat up and stuff like
I
that, so.
understand, and the only thing, my only concern was that if the planter will stick out too much, it will interfere with the sidewalk, and with the, it's not gonna be ADA approved, so.
Right.
We'll have to see how big of a box we can do. If we do a concrete box, the walls will be, 2, 3 inches, and that will increase the box itself and will stick out more, so.
And then, the other question I have is with all these new columns you're gonna have in there, I see on the existing one, there's signs on every single one of them. Like, I can't read the signs, but I know one of them has a handicap parking sign on it. Are all those signs gonna go back up? Or,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I believe most of these were there from past, but
okay.
I really was waiting to see what we were doing.
Yeah, I would not like to see them because you're
I
gonna,
know, I don't like them either, yes. I will have them all removed.
If they're not required by city or by law, they can just come down, and we don't have to put them up then.
The handicap parking signs, you'll have to put on a post, and you can mount that. This one here is a handicap parking sign, so you can remount that on a post. It can go directly into the, you have wheel stops here, so in between the wheel stops, where that handicap parking space is
That shouldn't
designated.
be a problem.
and the last issue I have, or not issue, just question is, I see the lights, I see parking lot lighting and then sconces right below them. Is that sconce just a down light?
No, actually, it's a cylinder light that lights up and down, as you can see. So it's just more of a, just accent lighting, not like, because we have the other lighting that's 150 watt, a metal halide fixture. So that one will put out a lot of light for the whole parking lot. So the cylinder lighting, we're just trying to kind of, bring some, have that column look a little more different.
I guess my only issue was that cylinder lighting too close to the other lighting? Could it be brought down a little bit? No?
No. The other lighting is going to be at the roof light.
Correct. The parking lot lighting is going to be above the roof line, or I should say above the limestone capping. So that's going to be on the upper part. And then the cylinder lighting, it's going to be, we have about 14 feet from the sidewalk to the top of the building right now. I think I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 8 feet on center for the wall sconces. So it's going to be about 2 feet in between, I
Okay.
would say, at least.
Those are just suggestions, that's all. So otherwise, I have nothing
Thank you.
else.
Commissioner Vito.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Johnson?
No, I think Commissioner Zangara hit everything that I had noted. Thank you.
Commissioner Stalin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go back to the wall sconce. Is that going to be illuminating upwards and downwards? Correct. I really think that the bottom of the light is going to be 12 feet above ground level, and you're only going to be a very short distance to where the 150 watt big light is going to be. I think if you're going to be projecting up just a few inches or feet, maybe it's a foot, I can't really tell. I think it might be wise if you moved it down a foot or so you get a little bit more of that up shadow effect. Otherwise I just go with a plain downward pointing sconce. So
Yeah, I mean, we can look into
I just think that would look, you're the architect.
That was the point I was trying.
And the other question I have, if we're going to put planters out there, do you have any provisions in the front of the building for a hose outlet or anything along the building at all? How are you going to water these planters, If you're not going to water them, then why should they be there? They're occupying space and they're going to die, You don't have a landscaping contractor that comes in and...
I do have a landscape.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Does he cut your grass?
Yes, the 8 inches of grass that we have right. But he also cleans up everything, the leaves.
Would he be willing to water the...
I was hoping that the tenants will take care of that. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. That's my only concern, that we're going to put in planters that aren't going to be taken care of.
It wasn't our plan, but Mr. Jennings insisted that the village required that we have to put some landscaping, and our other choice was hanging from the roof. That's not right.
Well, that's how we end up with those sconces so high up, because we were trying to put actually some flower pots hanging with some kind of a lighting and whatnot, but also they were interfering with the sidewalk. So now I remember that's why we got the sconces higher and higher.
I don't know. I just think that, if we have to rely on the individual shop owners to water the plants and keep them growing, that it's a futile proposition. I mean, I'd like to see plants out there. If you could talk your landscaper into bringing a bucket of water with them every week, or...
I could probably ask him. I don't know. I'm sure there's water holes and stuff back there we could use.
That's my concern, Mr. Chairman. You deal with it. Thank you.
Commissioner Powers?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I also agree about if you try to bring that sconce down, maybe even to the top of the windows. I mean, I think that would look pretty nice, because you're going to have your parking light up there, but I think you'll definitely see some definition, because I've seen people with those lights, there definitely is light up and below, and you would definitely be able to see that if you were moved down. So that's how I recommend that. I think the planter boxes, I think it's a good idea. The only thing is like maintenance, and then if they're cedar, eventually it's going to weather and you're going to have to keep that stain. So, that may become a maintenance issue for you. Are you taking down all the signs and then like replacing the material and like redoing that whole front? So all the signs are coming down and you're going to replace that all?
All the signs will have to come down for the stucco repair.
Okay.
And the stucco is going to receive a base coat, which is needed for the finish coat when you apply your stucco.
Okay. Andrew, are they in the Crossroads TIF at all?
They are.
Are they eligible for a facade grant?
They would be, yes.
Okay, are you aware of the grants we got for
Yes.
facades? Okay.
That's why we are here.
Good. I think it looks great. I think it's going to be a big improvement. It'll look really nice, and thanks for doing it. I have no further questions.
Thank you. So, just for clarification, and did we, I know you had a question, Andrew, about the shield on the wall packs? Is that?
Well, as it is, there are no parking lot lights. You have two old-style fixtures that jut out from the building, correct? The parking lot poles are not really possible in this location. They need the space for vehicles to back up, and they can't really place any sort of obstruction in that backup area. So given the circumstances, we just wanted to confirm that the configuration of this light, which is not I would say, not a true full cutoff fixture, it does throw light toward Dundee Road slightly. There are no, on that side of the street, there are no residential uses directly across from it. There are some street lights for Dundee Road. I think there's one at each side of this property, maybe one just west of your property and one toward the east end of your property. I just want to make sure, and that was the purpose of the staff report note, was that this light, I would not say is truly a full cutoff fixture, but it was something that I felt the Plan Commission could approve if found to be appropriate here.
Andrew, can the intensity, it was stated that they were 150 watt, could they be lowered if they put too much of an undue brightness out into the road or something?
I don't believe 150 watt metal halide is going to be extremely bright. My suggestion in this case would be possibly to cut the number that you have. You have one on every column. Perhaps you could break that up and allow the, I don't know. We have not done a full photometric study. This parking lot is about 25 feet deep, I think, off of the sidewalk. It's tight. It's a really unusual configuration. So pretty much any light is going to make its way to the other end of the parking lot here. So the one suggestion I had was actually looking at cutting the number of lights just because of the clutter on the columns. But that's, I don't know that we have a requirement for something like that.
Any other? And then you had one comment about deteriorating stones.
Yes. When we were out comparing the brick sample to the existing brick, which I think we put a photograph of that in here, when we were out making this comparison, I noticed that some of the limestone is deteriorating, especially the lower level stones near the doorways. Do you have a plan to replace the ones that are really falling apart with a new stone?
With the, with all the tuck pointing process, any deteriorated bricks, stones, and whatnot will have to be replaced.
So you have, as part of this project, you are anticipating removing
Yeah,
some
we
of the
can-
limestone?
Yeah, we can leave it there.
Yeah, I noticed that a few of them are just,
Yeah,
you can
I-
pull it apart with your hand, so.
Yeah, absolutely. We have plans to remove some of this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what's the
Replace
point of
them.
doing all this and then just leaving all that?
Just checking.
And I think you should work with your landscaper for the planters to keep them watered.
Sure, no problem.
But I would like to have a condition on the limestone added. Any other questions? Tell me when you're done.
Do you know if the limestone, what the depth of the limestone is on this, just out of curiosity?
I think would be about 4-inch, which is 3.5, 4-inch, it's standard.
Okay. So it has the same sort of
Depth.
CMU behind it as the brick does? 3 conditions of approval as it's written right now. Number 1, that the wall-mounted parking signs are not to be remounted, placing the handicap parking signs on posts as needed. Number 2, that decorative wall sconces are lowered to provide greater separation from the parking lot lights. And number 3, that the deteriorating limestone pieces are replaced during construction.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Powers, second by Commissioner Zangara. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Powers?
Yes.
Commissioner Zangara?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson is yes. Commissioner Stylin?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
And Chairman Raffato?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
You'll have something to sign.
And while you're walking over there, just as a point for you, since you have stated that you do intend to do the facade grant program, we need you to resubmit the application for that to match up with this particular work. Once we receive that application, the facade grant committee, which is a staff committee, will meet and review your application. And then the plan commission's decision on the appearance, while it's a final action, would also then need to be combined with a board review of the grant. So if your intention is to be 100% sure that you have the grant before commencing work, you would need to wait until the village board reviews the grant. So we need the first step to get to that point. Well, this is the first step. This is done. We do need the facade grant application and a detailed estimate of the work. And then the grant program is a reimbursement program. The village will reimburse you after you approve payment on the approved items. So, so the next step would be update the grant.
You email it to me? Or?
Sure, sure.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we take 5 minutes? Okay, then we're going to do that.
You're the big kahuna.
I am.
Wow, I put a lot of slides in here. Business.
Sorry, hold on one second, Andrew. Got somewhere around here. Thank you. Docket number 2014-16 continued from September 18th, public hearing, Village of Wheeling, amendments to Title 19 zoning. Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. So this is a continued hearing, and at the end of the night tonight, I think what I would like to ask for is a continuation to November 6th. I had thought that perhaps doing a one-week continuation might be a good idea, but I think after tonight's discussion, what I'd like to come back with on November 6th is a true draft code for your consideration, and if it's good enough that night, then we can entertain a recommendation on it, and if not, we'll go back for a second round. But to get there, though, I'd like to go through what has happened since our last meeting. We presented at our last hearing on this topic some sample codes from a variety of municipalities. We also went through photographs of some of the structures, mostly from Palatine, that showed buildings that either would meet our current code, not meet our current code, meet the proposed code, not meet the proposed code, just to sort of visualize what it is we're talking about, because this is fairly dry material otherwise. So at the last meeting, the consensus of the commission was that the layout, format, content, et cetera, of the Naperville design guidelines were a worthwhile model to investigate. So taking that direction, what we did was we tried to figure out exactly how they approved what they approved. We wanted to see what kind of visual character it created after its approval. We wanted to speak with their staff about how they manage the process. So what I'd like to start out with is just a brief overview of what we did in Naperville. Brooke and I went and met with them. The particular sections that we were concerned with from their design guidelines are, I put the excerpt here. It's from the section that we looked at last time regarding symmetry, use of windows, scale of the windows. We had probably most of our discussion was about their this particular section here on materials, accent materials, and primary materials. So what we did was we set up a meeting with one of their planners. We took a field trip down to Naperville to get a few minutes of their time to go through how this works. We asked for suggestions of buildings to visit. So we were able to take photographs of residential buildings, commercial buildings, mixed-use buildings, both good examples, some not so good examples. The short answer on this, the section of their design guidelines here that you see, the commission was particularly interested in this because it breaks down in a compact area the reasons that the proper application of a variety of different materials. So you have almost here in order of preference from their brick down to siding. They've almost prioritized it. So the first thing we learned was that this design guideline is not itself a code. What they have are 3 different design guidelines. They have the commercial design guideline, and they have a historic district guideline, and they also have one that is more for site planning. These 3 different guidelines are part of their comprehensive plan, and then what they did is they adopt the comprehensive plan as part of their municipal code. So it's sort of a circle back, and then the building code and zoning code refer to these guidelines as the desired character. So it is not what we would refer to as a hard requirement. The way that it works, though, is that generally speaking, the developers see the predictability. They know what they are expected to do. They have a lot of pre-application discussion with staff. There's several rounds of staff review to get to the point where they actually come to the architectural review board with the plan. What the planner said was that generally speaking, they, by that point, have modified their plan to comply with the expectations. What it allows them to do, though, because it wasn't a hard code, is they can reduce it without going through a formal variation process. So the main difference there in it's a large municipality. There is just, there's more construction going on. So there, as of right development, is more of a common scenario. Here we have a design review for essentially anything. So I don't know that the apples to apples comparison exists, but that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be some elements of this that we could try to replicate when drafting our code. So that's the code background. Any questions on the code background?
Well, so how do they have a Title 19?
They have a zoning code.
Right.
Their zoning code, when you get to this section on architectural design, does reference this. It does say that the design of buildings should be completed and, as described in this design guideline.
But they have a little leeway.
They do. They have some.
And you said it's part of their comp plan, so we would have to, I mean, if we tried to adopt something like that, which would be interesting, we'd have to go back and add this to our comp plan.
If you wanted to do it exactly the same way, yes. A couple of different ideas for this. When you're trying to do something that's got some sort of graphic component to it, it's not always the best idea. It can be a little bit awkward to try to put it in the text of your code. If you look at our definitions, we have graphics embedded in it. In the end, it's harder to follow. One thing you might want to consider is doing a design guideline appendix to the zoning code. You have a bike rack and bike parking standards as an appendix. You have your use table as an appendix. Our third appendix is just a historical account of all of the plan developments and plan unit developments, where they are, what their basic stats are. So you could do a fourth appendix that is a design guideline document. And you could, unlike Naperville, you could make it a requirement, shall be done in accordance with this. And you could still set up, as has been discussed here, you could still set up some absolute minimum requirements. It's up to the commission to make that recommendation, but there's nothing, you could also go this direction of having a design guideline that is part of your comprehensive plan. I don't think either way is wrong, but the way that everything is structured here right now, you might find that the design guideline appendix might work better for you.
Better, sure. Okay. Mr. Stahler?
Just a comment, right, that the character, if you did something in the zoning code that was this definitive, it would tend to apply to the entire town, right? The town center may have a character that's a little bit different than, let's say, the old town area of town, and just wonder if the comprehensive plan approach, which seems to be segmented by area, might be an alternative that might fit if indeed we find that some of the characters of the area are a little bit different. You know, Lake Cook Road is different than Dundee Road, which is different than Town Center.
But couldn't you accomplish that? And one of the things that you've talked about is an overlay for the town, the town center.
Andrew,
You have a couple of different options for this. You are able to define an area. I think I would like to say the Glenview code, if you remember, I don't know if you remember seeing this thing, but I think the Glenview code has a
Milwaukee Avenue.
has right in there has a map that says this is the area this applies to, and they put the map right there that says, you know, Glenview town center. I can't remember exactly which phrase, but the Glenview downtown design area got a map. It applies to this area, and here are the guidelines. I believe
Would
that's
that be
actually
better
inside.
in the zoning code itself? Because then if you ever changed it, you'd have to redo that or the comprehensive plan? Or?
You know, I don't think that there is a better necessarily
Okay.
on that. I mean, I think it's just it's
A place.
one way or the other, just defining how you want to treat it. The comprehensive plan already has vision statements essentially for each of the sub areas. If you restructure your sub areas, as we've been talking about, you'd still have to go back and amend the comprehensive plan, which ultimately is a public hearing also. So, you know, there's no, I don't think one way is necessarily easier or harder than the other. My personal preference, if you're looking for code, you put it in the code. That's my personal preference. I think the fact that it takes somebody, if you came to the area and you were looking to build a building, as a builder, my inclination would not be to find the part of the comprehensive plan that tells me what my building design requirements are. I would lean toward the zoning code personally. Not to say that Naperville hasn't had some success using this, but I would personally tend to think that most people will look to the zoning code first.
Okay.
Can you have sufficient wiggle room, as I call it, if it's in the code section as opposed to the comprehensive plan is a little more.
You can write your flexibility
Yeah.
into your code. A code can be written with exceptions that are not variations. We have them for some of our bulk regulations. For example, you can encroach in your front yard in certain circumstances without having to get a variation to do it. There are certain things that we as a staff can just authorize. We can look at the circumstances and say, you know what, this meets the criteria for this exception, and we just grant it. I don't see any reason why you could not do something similar with this.
Okay.
The exception for concrete block, as it's written right now, you can put it in non-visible locations. It's not a variation, it's limited.
All right, cool. Okay.
Quick one.
Sure.
I was just curious with Naperville, kind of like having, you know, the classifications and kind of like an openness. Did they say at all if they get a lot of pushback, or do they push back a lot on the developer that says, well, they said, well, you have this like, I don't know, paint template right now with all these different things you can do. If they said, well, we really feel, developer says, we really feel strong about going with this, and they said, and they kind of steer them and say, no, we really need to go like this, and after a while they say, well, okay, well, at least you can do is you can go to like an approval, like a zoning board or whatever, and see if they'll approve it. We're recommending you this, but if you don't want to do that, we'll let it go forward. Is there any, how much have they actually had to push back on developers say, you know, I don't really think that's a good idea. I think we need to go, you know, follow this more of a template. Or with this type of area, you should go with this type of construction.
That was one of the items we covered with their staff. Let's see, they can, it is considered an appeal. It's not a variance, but the staff decision on as of right development can be appealed. So if the staff were to review a project, because remember, they do have as of right development. You could come in and get a building permit to build a commercial building. In the village of Wheeling, you cannot do that. You cannot just go to the staff, apply for a building permit, and receive it. you have to go through the design review. So their first step for some portion, a lot of what they do is like what we do. It's going to come in as a plan unit development. It's going to require the design review, but they do have the ability for the commercial to come in as of right. Remember, they also do have infill commercial where you're only going to see one side of the building because it's going to have zero lot line construction on the other sides of it. So the part of the building that you're actually going to see is limited, and the staff can look at it and check the boxes of, has windows, is brick, check, check, check. So if they do appeal a staff decision, it goes to a planning and zoning commission. Like I said, the major projects need planning and zoning review anyway. So we did talk to them a little bit about the pushback. They said it wasn't very frequent, actually. That most of the builders that they've worked with, by the time it gets in front of the commission, there's already a general agreement with them as to what it is they're going to do.
Okay.
Just one other quick note before we move on. The way that they came up with their design guidelines, the process that they went through, they sought some public input on it to begin with, general public input. They advertised that they were seeking that input. They put it out in a couple of different places, online, library, etc. Then they solicited some professional input. They talked to the architects and builders who are actually going to be building, asked them for some professional input. They conducted some public open houses. They said that the most contentious issue in the process related to precast, the use of precast. There was a builder who had a particular desire for precast material and felt that it was not adequately covered in their design guidelines and lobbied them to include that in their design guidelines, which they ultimately did. Let me see. Any other questions on the code side of it?
No.
So what I'd like...
Mr. Stein.
Andrew, just, in some of our prior talks, we talked about changing the calculation for garage doors and window spaces and all this other stuff. If we did make those changes, what would happen to the existing buildings in town that don't conform to it? Would they become non-conforming? And then would we have to get a variation to get them back into normalcy?
When you change the code in a way that makes a building non-conforming, there's not a trigger that requires them to go back for a variation unless they then do something that's going to extend the degree of non-conformity on their building. So if they were, for example, if they were coming to you and they had built the building originally under the 2005 regulations, they wanted to make a modification that either kept their degree of nonconformity the same or reduced their degree of nonconformity, there's no need for a variation. But if they wanted to, say you had eliminated aluminum siding from the code, they wanted to take the 50% aluminum siding building, get rid of the brick, and bring the aluminum siding down the rest of the building, they would need a variation at that point. They would be increasing their degree of nonconformity.
I just remember a long time ago that some banks had problems with either loaning money or giving some mortgages on property, and I can't remember the example, but the property had some non-conforming aspects that either needed, according to the bank, needed to be changed or a variation given in order to meet their requirements. And would we be making things more difficult for our people?
So the short answer is no. The situation that you're referring to, though, we've had that come up in a couple of different scenarios. One is driven sometimes by lending institutions and insurance companies. They're looking at the building that they're lending money on. They do a zoning review. They find a non-conforming issue, and we don't require it, but they require it of their
In order to get the loan, you
Right.
go get the variation that says we can rebuild it exactly the way we want to, if we're going to give you this money, our investment here has to be protected from loss.
Right.
So that's one. The other side of it is the mortgage issue. You have a homeowner who's got, the one that we ran into was a large neighborhood, had an apparent nonconformity. The banks did not understand the nuance of the zoning code. They were reading it as a nonconformity, and they weren't refinancing houses in that neighborhood. So we didn't really change much, but we changed it in a way that they could understand it at least. So before I move on to some of these photographs, we can run through the direction that we had from last time combined with our discussion tonight. I think what we'll draft then is we'll take that original draft that we had, work with it. I will try to get some graphics to go along with some of these items. I will not plagiarize Naperville. So I'll try to take some of the photographs that we've taken, maybe draw a few sketches, do this as an appendix, reference it from this section so that we don't, if we change the appendix related to design guidelines for residential, design guideline for commercial, we don't have to keep going back and finding every reference around the code. Something like that sound like a reasonable step for the November 6th meeting?
Yes.
Okay, what I wanted to do with the rest of this time, just real briefly, is just flip through our field trip. Just a couple of
They
examples.
have like where you went to lunch and stuff like that? We stopped here. Yeah. No, go ahead.
We did eat.
Okay.
We did eat. It was.
Was it
not-
architecturally, did
It was actually
it
not-
conform architecturally?
It did, actually.
Okay.
I did not take a photograph of that particular building. Okay, so these are the buildings that they sent us to as, just to get a feel for the character. What I've done with this is kind of broken them into commercial, townhome, apartment, and then I've got some sort of public space type of photographs. Precast I've got sort of separately. I just want to flip through these real quick and just sort of show you some of what we were taking a look at. You've got a mix of materials. You've got, I think one of the things that we talked about throughout this is not just the materials, but the articulation of the facade. You have elements that bump out. You've got a portion of this is a false pitched roof. This is not a true part of the roof of this building. It's purely exterior, but they have bump out here, adds a pitched roof element. They've got a pitched roof element here out of a different material, but all kind of complementary in this same sort of brown earth tone. I didn't include the back of this building, I don't believe. Nope, I didn't include the back. But the back of the building is broken up with a couple of, it's not this exact stone, but it's a similar stone, so whereas they would have had a blank wall with no breaks in it, they threw in what's basically looks like a fake door made of stone every now and then. It just breaks up the building. This is a larger development. I'll have another picture of it here in a second. Again, you've got sort of the articulation of the facade. You have a base material. You have a cornice material. You can't quite see it from here, but there are a couple of different roof styles on this one. For good or bad, I don't know. They've got this curved roof. They've got a sort of traditional angled roof, which is possibly some sort of faux copper. This outdoor seating area, they took the columns, the brick partitions in the building, and each one has a planter coming out from it that defines this outdoor seating area. Kind of a nice touch. Landscaping tends to be native plantings. Just so the whole package of this, you've got a fairly large building here that they've taken some care in breaking it up, capping off the roof, adding windows above the what appears to be the first floor height. This picture didn't do so well, but what you're seeing here is a development that's got a lot of different types of stone.
just as an example of when you write a requirement, how some people might interpret it. You know, if you say stone is okay, you might end up with 10 different stones all in
Yeah.
one building. And this is stone, you know, from the ground to the roof. And this whole thing back here, hiding back here, is more of the same. One stone for 14 feet, another stone for 14 feet, just one after the other. This was a more modern plan development that was done. There is no particular context for this one. It's out in sort of a office park area. They've added this mixed use sort of ground level flavor to it. Looks a little bit like sort of a downtown Arlington Heights, perhaps even some elements of a Michigan Avenue sort of flair to it. What you don't get from this is that if you turn around and look the other way, it's a field. It's an open field right behind this.
Right now.
Right now. But this is nowhere near the downtown. There are offices around there. Do you remember the primary office? It was something that I recognized, but there's, you know, insurance, big insurance companies, that kind of thing around here. So this is in the downtown area. This is sort of the existing character of the downtown. So when they wrote their downtown design guidelines, this is the character that they were expecting the new development to match up with. So you see detail work at the roof line. You see detail work around the windows. You see first floor transparency. The signage tends to be kept at more or less the height of the top of the first floor. Colors tend to be subdued, which is one of the things from their design guidelines. Let's see what else. A fairly large number of these buildings are painted brick. I know that that's one thing that we've kind of discussed how to handle with the general tendency to not do it. But they do have a fair number of painted brick buildings in their downtown area.
And they do have a subway. Looks like the old sign.
They do. That sign looks that's not on an awning, is it? I think that might be the
Might be on, yeah, it might be on the awning.
Starbucks sign, might be a cabinet sign.
Yeah, I thought it was.
So this is a new building in the downtown area.
Which one?
This whole thing.
That whole thing?
This whole thing.
That's all one.
all one development.
Parking garage in there too.
I'm sorry?
There's a parking garage behind there too, I think.
This one, no, I'll get to the parking garage in
Yeah.
a second. So you have upper story office, upper story residential, lower level retail. And this is within the fabric of their other town. So it's built right to the sidewalk. It's very consistent with, if you turn the corner and go around the back, you end up with, is where the Starbucks and the other things are. This one is an interesting one. It's difficult to see. Probably a video of us knocking on this building would have been effective. Everything on this building is EIFS. It's entirely EIFS from the sidewalk up to the top. This stone, if you look at it up close, has a textured, each block has an aggregate look to it. There's another aggregate appearance here. Every single one of them, if you knock on it, is hollow. They said, when talking to their staff about this, this picture doesn't quite do justice. In real life, this is actually less attractive than this picture makes it look.
Yeah. Well, you could see some of the seams all over.
Interesting thing about this one is they said that this was a compromise. They actually worked with the owner of this building after it was built. It's a 15-year-old building. It's fairly old. So this was the compromise, putting the skin on it. The old exterior was falling apart. So they put this skin on it to try to cover up what was there. But the interesting thing about this is just the wide variety of textures and colors that they got out of their EIFS on this. But we noticed that if you look very closely at the edges where the doors are, it's falling apart. I mean, that's the easiest way to tell that it's EIFS is you can see the fiber where it's cracking, the facade's cracking off.
Also has the the, I guess you want to call it street lighting and the walkway lighting in that picture from our past discussions.
Yeah, they do have the pedestrian lights and the street lights on here. This particular building is interesting because I believe half of it's precast and the other half is not. You're looking at what I believe they told us is a traditional masonry building. The other side of the building is here. It's built to be potentially have another building right up next to it. So they did not want to have quite the same level of detail as you see on this side of the building. So from the back, this is what you get. This is a precast building. This is precast, and they have brick in the form when they put the precast in. So it's real brick in precast, and then they spread the mortar on it after the fact. I added this detail here because this is you're looking at a close-up of this area here. So inside the precast form, they put jumbo brick as a fake window. And then this is also applied to the precast. This is a fully precast building. There is no brick on this building whatsoever. It's painted on. The color of the precast is this. This is painted precast with the texture. So when the panel came out of the form, this is what it looked like minus these two colors. So this color, the red color and this deeper yellow color were added. They appear to have been rolled on after the fact. If you get up really close to it, it looks like just a high quality exterior stain. The ceiling of this building, I believe, is also precast. If you back up from it, it looks like it was a precast, 4 precast triangles that were leaned together and then joined. Just an interesting, it's a public bathroom, not that we have that many of those around, but this is a public bathroom next to one of their parks. Another precast structure that I thought had some interesting site plan implications for us moving forward. We tend to run into these questions with developments over and over again. What do you do when there's a double entry? There's a front on each side. Where do you put the service end of the building? This Bank of America, for example, fronts on a parking lot, but it also fronts on the public street. Fairly common question for us. How do you treat both sides of the building? Where do you put the service in? This is the trash enclosure that is shared by what appears to be about 12 different stores. Actually, no, some of these, if you turn the corner, a couple of them have. So there's probably about 6 or 7 stores on this side. And then across the street, there are several restaurants that bring their trash across the street to this trash enclosure. This is precast. This is another case that's not real brick laid into the precast. This is just the form itself. So you got a precast wall. I don't know, maybe on your screens it's a little easier to see than on the big screen. But just precast elements with a heavy-duty gate. And then they've got trash that is shared by multiple businesses inside there. And it's right in the middle of the parking lot. You'll get another view of this street in a second here. This is not that street, sorry. I think we're moving on to residential. Residential buildings, we had talked about where you put the line of minimum brick. This one has a lot of the design elements we talked about, creating shadow by the use of porches. They've got bay features that stick out. They've broken up the roof line here by having the gable end come sideways to the front of the building. Shutters. So they pretty much have a little bit of everything that we've talked about in terms of design combined with materials.
Is there a sidewalk on both sides of that fence?
I'll show you the back end of this building in a second, but this is a regular public sidewalk. I'd say this is a 5-footer. The walkway on the other side of the fence is about 1 foot wide. And it just runs right in front of the stairs. So I don't know how many people walk on it.
Yeah, so they didn't want to lead to the main sidewalk?
You know, I can't answer that for them. I don't know why they did it.
Need to borrow a
If you
cup of
turn
sugar.
around,
Such nice-looking stairs going down to nothing.
if you turn around, you actually hit the service side of a Whole Foods. That Whole Foods that had the,
Okay?
that's what's behind you here.
Wow.
Found this one to be interesting because these are townhomes. These are 4-unit townhomes. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, all connected. This break is not real. This break is, if you actually keep moving, it's a part of the building is separated, but the rest of it's actually attached. So they have a common entryway back in here. This guy has his own entry, these 2 units share an entry, and then this guy has an entry. When we were looking at the Kraus Lane townhomes a couple of years ago, this is sort of the model, this is kind of similar to what they were proposing. Found this one to be an interesting case for a few reasons. We left this area and drove directly into this area. I took this particular building because this end of these townhomes, you could actually see it. For some reason, the character of the neighborhood just changed very suddenly. They have landscaping in close proximity to these buildings, so there's a lot of shade on the houses themselves. It makes them look much older than they actually are. They are older than some of the other townhomes around here, but having the trees right up against it, it's kind of an interesting contrast in the appearance. Also an interesting contrast is the front compared to the back of this building.
That's
This is the same
complex.
building.
Oh.
This is this house. So when you go down behind it, you get this all-white corridor with black asphalt below it. Just an interesting, one side's definitely like the alley and the other side is definitely not. This is the front and back of a building where you see the front here and the back here. Again, just the use of different materials on these buildings. You've got some brick mixed in, and the back is a little bit more uniform. The front, they kind of look like each individual unit has its own appearance. In the back, it kind of all blends together a little bit. This was an apartment building. Don't want to spend a lot of time on it. It was not the most pleasant feel to it. There's a lot of asphalt in this area. It's hard to describe without actually seeing it. I won't spend much time on it, but this is the back end of it. There's a lot of vinyl siding on this one. Probably not something that, if they were to do it again, I'm not sure that they would do it exactly the same way. You don't really get from this is this building has each one of these is looking directly at another one. So this distance here, if you imagine it, there's another one of those looking right at it. Kind of closed in, not much. In between these buildings, there's not much that's alive. This is about the extent of the landscaping. Going back to the development that had the Whole Foods, there's a breaking up the parking lot. They've inserted a public park seating area. Part of it's paver, part of it's crushed stone. It's mostly natural plantings. There's a historical plaque at the other side of it that explains the original landowner of this area. And I can't remember, it's a tribute to their pioneering spirit or something to that effect. While you're getting your, Whole Foods and World Market stuff. Just a view of the typical streetscape. They have raised planters. This particular street is just about all honey locust. You see the streetscape. In this case, you've got a painted asphalt, brick paver sidewalk, crosswalk, excuse me. You've got a large enough planter area that there's plenty of landscaping inside with an otherwise very urban character street. this is the parking garage. So our trash enclosure that we were just looking at is right here off this side. So it looks right at this. The parking garage, I think, is an interesting example of, a functional building that's got some of the same design elements. They've got awnings down at the same level as the storefront awnings. They break up the facade. There's no glass here, but they break up the facade at the same frequency that you see the storefronts. They've got a horizontal design element at more or less the top of the second floor and third floor kind of level, or wherever that would be. So they've broken it up. They've added some of the same design elements that they had in some of their other buildings. I think that was it for this. So what I'm looking for before I do a 2-minute other business would be a motion to continue to November 6th with the direction to draft the appendix as we've discussed.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
We need a voice vote, or do we need to,
On a continuation, you can do a voice vote.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Got it. Thank you. It was good. It was very interesting.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, that was good. Nice road trip.
And hopefully on the 6th, we'll be closer to, we've talked about this before. I don't like to drag out a hearing
No,
like this.
but this is good. This
Trying
is
to
good.
make an informed recommendation on
And
this.
just as a reminder, the 6th is the first Thursday, which we normally don't have a meeting. So I know I'm not going to be here, so.
Okay.
I assume everybody is going to be here?
That's our first cannabis, right? That meeting, just to remind you what we talked about at our last meeting, we have public hearings scheduled for every meeting from now for the foreseeable future. So if you're not available for a meeting, please try to let us know in advance. If we have to make quorum-based adjustments, we'll have to do it. We do have we have one item where we have a commissioner who's expected to continue his pattern
Actually, 2 items.
of abstaining.
Yeah.
All right.
So just try to remember to let us know when you can. The other business item, just very briefly, we don't have a full presentation on this. We had talked about the Neighborhood Streetscape Initiative. While on our field trip, we observed an example. We talked about breaking up our neighborhood gathering spaces into sort of a large model, a medium model, and then a very small model, where we don't have a full parcel, but we have some space. When we were going through this neighborhood, we noticed, here you can see the curb. So this is the parkway, and what they've done here is they've planted a landscape screen at the edge of the parkway and created a semi-private area right off the public sidewalk. They've marked it with brick. These are clay brick pavers. And they've added a bench. And the bench probably goes, a total of 3 feet off the back of the sidewalk here. They continued the landscaping, as you can see here, around the back of the bench. Just with very little space, created a place that's comfortable enough to sit down for a couple minutes. I would suggest that if we can find places, this is a good way to make up for the fact that some of the neighborhoods that don't have easy access to open space, as we talked about, do not have much village land available in terms of larger parcels. So where we might have that sort of limitation, this could help us to provide a reasonable amount of open space with a very small easement. You'd be talking about maybe a foot or so onto somebody's property, assuming the first foot is still public property. So
That looks nice.
you could also bend the sidewalk and avoid the easement issue. If you're taking out squares to do a couple of bricks, you could look at maybe bending it as well. So just something to add to our inventory of ideas We still do plan to come back again in the near future, perhaps on one of these. If I had to guess at this point, I would say it's probably going to be in December, just based on how many public hearings we have. We have to take a little hiatus from our workshops, but.
No, that looks nice. You sort of had a touch of that in that one picture you showed from the,
I think I showed this picture maybe.
no, at
In the shopping center?
The shopping center had the same type of,
Yeah.
the shopping center had the bench and it had the grasses behind it. Yeah, that'd be nice.
We have
You want one
not.
in your yard? Front yard? Got a spot for it.
I got a spot for it.
So I think what we're looking for is to not actually place these in people's front yards.
I do get a lot of foot traffic.
Are you volunteering?
I don't know.
So I think what we're going to start doing now is try to narrow down the categories. Where do we have larger parcels? Do we have some opportunities for some of the medium ones? And then where we don't, we've got, I think we have with this a reasonable model for a tiny,
Excellent.
tiny break spot.
Well,
You
thanks
know-
for the update.
Is that run by and upkept and maintained by the Townhome Association? Do you know, or is that like village
I
stuff?
don't know in this case. I don't know where, in a new development like that, I don't know where public and private
Right.
stops. I don't know where the line is. But based on the fact that the sidewalk is there, I thought it'd still be, a reasonable. We had talked at one of our workshops about this type of really small gathering place possibly being donated to, where you have an association that owns a detention area, for example, and part of the detention area is flat and near the sidewalk. Maybe you could get something like this. It's on the association's property, and they would maintain it in the future, but the initial investment, perhaps we could come up with a way to donate those.
Right, because I think that'd be the more feasible way to get these things going, then they'll always look for public property to just kind of encroach a little bit and try to get easements on association property, like at the front of neighborhoods or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we're heading now is, I think we had hoped that we would have a greater distribution of the parcels, not just looking at right-of-way areas, but real true parcels that we had acquired, and they tend to not be concentrated in the locations where we would have hoped, but, we're still working on it.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Going to other business. Commissioner Powers?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Vito?
No, nothing.
Commissioner Johnson?
No, nothing.
Commissioner Zangara?
I just have one quick question, and all just because of what's happened in the last couple of weeks. That cleaners that's going in, or that shopping center on Dundee and Schoenbeck,
The laundry, yeah.
yes, they're doing a lot of facade work. I just want to make sure that, I've been seeing, I think, stone on the base, and I can't remember if we approved that. Is there some way to check that to make sure that, just so we don't have another thing of,
I don't think they changed anything on the base.
I
They've been
just
working on the ephes on top.
and I just can't remember, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I look out my kitchen window, I can see it. So I haven't noticed any,
Just because of what's happened with all these other things, it just popped up on my head. 'Cause
yeah, and then they have to make some storefront openings on the Schoenbeck side. So there's some modifications there, but
I can take a look at that.
Thank you.
That's it.
Commissioner Stalin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank staff for the really excellent job they've done on giving us lots of information for both the amendments to Title 19 and the neighborhood park discussion. I think they've really gone above and beyond what I've experienced in the past, and just want to say thank you very much for doing an exceptional job of providing us some neat samples. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I would echo that. Yeah, good job. And just as an aside, the Taste of the Town last week was, I thought, very successful. It was well-run,
Lots of people.
lots of people, good food.
Except you didn't win the raffle.
I didn't win the raffle, but I tried. So anyway, if we have, Mallory, do you have anything? Nothing? Brooke, nothing? All right, Andrew, I've already asked you. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
We're done. Thank you.